This photo is the cover of the new album by a singer named Sabrina Carpenter, titled Man's Best Friend. Criticism came right away. People accused her of sexualizing herself, promoting submission, and sending the message that women are like pets for men. But this is nothing new. She had already been accused of throwing away her Disney girl image and becoming just another product of the entertainment industry. On her tours, she began making provocative poses, wearing less clothing, and while that brought her more attention, it also brought more backlash. However, just as many people dismiss her as only a pretty body, others look deeper and think that this cover might actually hide a social critique. But before all of this, Sabrina was simply a girl with a dream: to be a singer. The first steps of that dream were Sabrina forcing her uncles to listen to her sing, recording herself on the family computer, and like many other kids, dreaming of being the next Hannah Montana. While most are told that singing is just a hobby, her parents supported her. So much so that they pulled her out of traditional school and decided to homeschool her so she could have more time to focus on what she loved. Why so much support? Because her mother had been a dancer in a company and her father had played in a band. Neither made it professionally, but they both loved music and were excited for their daughter to try. At 9 years old, Sabrina found out that her idol, Miley Cyrus, had launched an online contest called the Next Miley Cyrus Project. To search for new talent, Sabrina signed up, but so did over 7,000 people. She sent her video singing, and to her surprise, she advanced to the next round and then the next and the next, until she finally placed third overall. She didn't win, but she got to meet Miley in person and attend one of her shows. An experience that left Sabrina even more fascinated with the entertainment world. One thing to note from that first attempt at a singing career is that if you compare Sabrina's video to the other finalists, you can see a difference in overall quality. While many filmed themselves alone in their bedrooms, she appeared in what looked like a small studio, with dancers, basically recreating the hoedown throwdown scene from the Hannah Montana movie. This shows that her parents were taking their daughter's dream seriously, almost like they saw it less as a hobby and more as a career with great potential. Now, I know this might sound problematic, like one of those typical cases of kids exploited by their parents, who later lose control, like Dylan and Cole Sprouse or Jeanette McCurdy. But not here. Nobody shaved their head, nobody sued their parents. In a recent interview, Sabrina herself said it was the opposite. She was the one who begged for everything, and she's thankful her parents decided to support her so much. After her third place in Miley's contest, Sabrina opened her YouTube channel, the same one she still has today. If you go there, you can still see one of her earliest covers, Picture to Burn by Taylor Swift. She sounds surprisingly good, especially being so young. But even more impressive than her voice is how confident and natural she looks in front of the camera. She doesn't look like a nervous kid recording in her room. She looks happy and genuinely passionate. That's why her family decided to take a couple more steps. First, they hired a manager. Then her father built a mini studio at home so she could record whenever she wanted. So if Sabrina already admired her dad, this made her think he was the best man in the world. For her, like many little girls her age, her dad was an angel. But little Sabrina didn't know her father had a dark secret. When she was about 10, her dad, David, cheated on her mom. When her mom found out, she thought of separating, but in the end decided not to. She believed keeping family stability for the kids was better. So she forgave him and carried on as if nothing had happened, never telling Sabrina. For a while, it seemed to work, but when the truth eventually came out, it made Sabrina never look at men the same way again. Besides music, Sabrina had another passion: acting. It led her to audition for TV roles. That's how, in 2011, at just 12 years old, she landed her first television role, an episode of Law and Order. More small roles followed. And since her parents saw a future in her, they made the decision to leave Pennsylvania and move to Hollywood, so Sabrina could chase her career. That meant her parents quit their jobs and started from zero. Not just them. Sabrina has 3 sisters, and they too had to change their lives so she could follow her dream. Once in Hollywood, Sabrina began going to auditions. After several tries, she finally got what she had always wanted: a deal with Disney. The opportunity was to record a song for a compilation album called Disney Favorites. On that album appeared names already huge on Disney Channel: Selena Gomez, Wizards of Waverly Place, Zendaya, Shake It Up, Demi Lovato, Sunny with a Chance, Laura Marano, Austin and Ally, and others. In other words, it was practically an exclusive album of actresses who already had their own Disney shows. What does this tell us? That even if on paper it was just one song, Disney was already seeing Sabrina as someone with potential for future projects. But before giving her an on-screen role, Disney first tested her as a voice actress. She was hired to voice Princess Vivian in the series Sophia the First, a job she did very well. Not long after, her big opportunity arrived. Disney was preparing to launch a new series called Girl Meets World, a sequel to Boy Meets World. The story followed Riley, an ordinary teenager, through middle school with her friends Lucas, Parker, and Maya. Sabrina auditioned for the lead role of Riley. She didn't get it, but she was given the role of Maya, the best friend of the protagonist. This gave her not only a role in a Disney show, but also a record deal with Hollywood Records, Disney's label. Why a record deal if she was mainly acting? Because at that time, Disney had a clear formula. If one of their actresses could sing, they signed her to Hollywood Records and launched her as a pop star. That's how the careers of Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, and Miley Cyrus were born. Sabrina knew she could become a star at that level. So when she was offered a 5-album contract with Hollywood Records, she accepted without hesitation. With the label's support, she was assigned a production team to work on her first single. But she didn't write the lyrics. Other people did, among them singer Meghan Trainor. The song was Can't Blame a Girl for Trying. It talked about the struggles of a teenage girl in love, making mistakes but realizing she's just trying her best. After all, she's only a girl. The single was released, followed by an EP with the same name in early 2014. She felt like she was on top. And yes, she got some attention, about 7,000 units sold. But it wasn't a massive hit. Especially if you compare it with other Disney debuts. Demi Lovato's first album, Don't Forget, sold 89,000 copies in its first week and debuted at #2 in the US. Selena Gomez's Kiss and Tell sold over 900,000 total and hit the top 10 in several countries. Still, Sabrina kept working on her music. On April 14, 2015, she released her first full-length album, Eyes Wide Open, with songs like the title track and We'll Be the Stars. The sound was pop-folk with some country influence, and the lyrics focused on teenage themes like love and moving on after mistakes. If you watched Disney Channel in those years, you probably remember seeing her music videos in every commercial break. Disney was trying hard to make Sabrina's career take off, but globally, the album only sold about 42,000 copies. Numbers Disney didn't consider successful or profitable. In 2016 came her second album, Evolution. Here you could see a shift. a more mature sound and darker look. This record had some success, with songs like On Purpose and Thumbs. But it wasn't enough. She got recognition inside Disney, but not the massive growth her family and label expected. She didn't become the next Miley, Selena, or Demi. Why didn't Sabrina blow up? Partly because Girl Meets World never fully connected with audiences. It had a more philosophical tone than comedic, and teens just didn't vibe with it. Plus, by 2015, Disney Channel was no longer at its peak, and while Sabrina's music was nice and well-produced, it wasn't super catchy or distinctive. She didn't have a song like Party in the USA by Miley or This Is Me by Demi, tracks people still sing today. On top of that, the public was already saturated with Disney stars. Many weren't looking for another one. So Sabrina launched her first tour across the US and Europe. Thanks to her consistency, she gradually built a base of very loyal fans. That drew the attention of other artists. First, she sang with the Vamps, a band very popular among teenage girls. Then, Ariana Grande chose her to open a concert in São Paulo, Brazil. After that, Girl Meets World filmed its last episode, and Sabrina started her second tour. It lasted less than 2 months, but in that short time she gave 35 concerts across the US, a sign of how hard she was working. By 2017, her family had already been living in Hollywood for 4 years. And yes, Sabrina had achieved important things, albums, tours, a Disney series, but not the level of success her family might have hoped for when they moved. Her big shot as a Disney star hadn't panned out. And now, at 17 to 18 years old, she had to enter a very different, much more competitive world, where being a Disney alum wasn't enough. She began auditioning for other projects and landed a role in The Hate You Give, a film about racism and police brutality. She played Haley, the white girl who preferred to ignore the seriousness of the problem. It was a small role, but it helped her break out of the Disney mold. By late 2018, a key moment arrived. Her third album, Singular, Act 1. With songs like Almost Love and Sue Me, she finally broke into the US dance charts. Sabrina was starting to find her sound, and more importantly, what really connected with people beyond her usual fans. This opened more doors, like a collaboration with DJ Alan Walker and Farrakhan the track On My Way, which became quite popular and gave her global exposure. At the same time, she released Singular, Act 2. This one went beyond teenage love stories, tackling personal themes, like anxiety and social pressure. As she grew, her music evolved with her. The main single reflected that stage of turning 20, when everyone seems to have an opinion on how your life should be. That honesty and those new themes made her music connect strongly with fans. Singular, Act 2 became her 4th album with Hollywood Records. Even though her original contract was for 5, this ended up being the last. The 5th album never happened. Sabrina never explained why, but in one interview she said, "Thank God I didn't finish my contract." While releasing music, she also acted in films. One of them was Netflix's Tall Girl, a story about a tall girl whose biggest problem in life was being too tall. Sure, that can be awkward, but the movie treated it like the worst tragedy in the world, which people found ridiculous. The internet filled with memes mocking it, and although Sabrina only had a supporting role, she still ended up in the middle of the jokes. To stir things further, her personal life began drawing attention. Fans noticed how close she had gotten to Griffin Gluck, her co-star in Tall Girl. At the premiere, they were seen hugging, Later at Halloween, it was confirmed they were dating, but soon, old likes and comments from Griffin resurfaced, with racist content. His apology didn't convince people, and the backlash spilled onto Sabrina, almost as if it was her responsibility to carry the blame. Later, Sabrina would write a song about the feelings this caused her, including the shame of being linked to what your partner did. But that would come years later. As they say, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Even though the movie caused mockery and controversy, it still made her more well-known. She also auditioned for theater, specifically musical theater, because it combined her two passions, acting and singing. That's how she landed the role of Katie Heron in the Broadway adaptation of Mean Girls. An incredible opportunity, but with terrible timing. The show opened in March 2020. A few days later, the pandemic hit. The production closed after only 3 performances. With Broadway shut down, Sabrina looked for new opportunities and got a role in the series Royalties on Quibi. It was a musical comedy about songwriters behind the scenes, and Sabrina played a pop star, perfect for her. But Quibi was designed for short, on-the-go episodes, and since it launched during lockdown, when nobody was on the go, the platform failed, and with it, royalties. After several setbacks, finally came the moment that put Sabrina back on the mass stage, though maybe not in the best way, but to understand it, we need context. As you know, Disney has spent years milking its classics with remakes and spin-offs. Among those was High School Musical. Disney decided to revive it in series format. Not to retell Troy and Gabriella's story, but to show a group of students staging the High School Musical play. It was a confusing concept, but it worked. The actor playing Troy was Joshua Bassett, who was gaining fame from the show's success. The new Gabriella, his love interest, was Olivia Rodrigo. And here's where it gets interesting. In real life, Joshua and Olivia started dating. Fans loved it, as if the show's romance was happening off-screen too. But one day, paparazzi photos surfaced of Joshua and Sabrina having lunch. What looked like a date. Fans assumed Joshua and Olivia had broken up, and some speculated it was Sabrina's fault. Months later, Joshua posted that he and Sabrina dressed as Shark Boy and Lava Girl for Halloween. For many, that confirmed their relationship. But what really turned the world against Sabrina was when, in January 2021, Olivia Rodrigo released her first single, Driver's License. The song blew up worldwide instantly, but there was one detail in the lyrics. "You're probably with that blonde girl who always made me doubt." Everyone connected the dots and concluded it was about Sabrina. The internet erupted. Sabrina received massive hate, with people confirming what they already suspected, that she was the reason Olivia and Joshua split. Now, did Sabrina really ruin that relationship? When Olivia released the rest of her album, a track called Traitor included lines like, "Isn't it funny how you ran to her right after we broke up? Guess you didn't cheat, but you're still a traitor." Olivia never confirmed who it was about, but most fans assumed it was Joshua and Sabrina. In response, Sabrina tried to flip the drama, releasing her own song, Skin, her version of the story. The track went viral because it was genuinely good and because everyone was watching closely. But despite its success, it didn't necessarily win her new fans. Why? Because in the lyrics, Sabrina sang us if Olivia was trying to ruin her happiness while she bragged about being happy with Joshua on her skin. For many, it didn't sound empathetic or vulnerable, but arrogant, like she was showing off. the love triangle exploded in the media, giving a massive boost to both Olivia and Sabrina's careers. But here's the most interesting part. If you look at the dates, something curious stands out. Olivia was signed to Geffen Records, part of Universal Music Group. In January 2021, she released Driver's License. Just 2 weeks later, Sabrina Carpenter released Skin. That's very little time to write, produce, and release a single. Was it possible? Yes. But normal in the industry? Not really. It gets even more suspicious when you see that Skin was Sabrina's first release with Island Records, which also belongs to Universal Music Group. In other words, two young artists under the same corporate umbrella, debuting with their new labels in the middle of a personal drama that skyrocketed both careers. Coincidence? Or a well-calculated move by the labels? If we review the controversies that followed, they all seem to follow a very similar formula. But we'll get back to that in a moment. After that boom, Sabrina released Skinny Dipping. In English, it means swimming naked. But the song wasn't really about that, more about running into someone you once loved. The music video shows Sabrina pulling papers out of a bag, each containing phrases from past moments. Fans noticed one read, "Messy," and "Joshua." Even though the track wasn't directly about Joshua, people connected the dots again and assumed it was. Later, she released Fast Times with a video of her as a spy. It didn't get the expected results until July 2022, when she released her album, Emails I Can't Send. This was the first time she had full creative control, writing and shaping it as she wanted, without label interference. And that made the difference. This album was more intimate, with Sabrina opening up about her feelings and fears. For example, the track Vicious described how someone betrayed her trust. It wasn't clear if it was Joshua or another ex, but her vulnerability struck a chord with listeners. One of the most talked about tracks was Because I Liked a Boy. It seemed to reference the time she dated Joshua and was blamed for his breakup with Olivia. The lyrics criticize how people judged her just for liking someone, turning her into the bad guy. This album made people truly listen to Sabrina differently, seeing her not just as a Disney product but as an authentic artist. That's when her tours got bigger and better received. She also had other hits like Nonsense, a more fun, cheeky song that blew up on TikTok. Her songwriting showed wit, personality, and honesty. And even though she didn't win Grammys, Sabrina became an artist that critics and the industry began to take seriously. But again, we can't ignore how scandals kept surfacing. For example, in February 2023, she posed with Shawn Mendes at a Vanity Fair event. They seemed to be getting along well. Later, paparazzi saw them leaving together, fueling romance rumors. Some fans accused her of stealing Shawn from Camila Cabello, even though Shawn and Camila had already broken up. Again, the Boy Stealer label resurfaced. She was also linked to Dylan O'Brien after being seen together, though nothing was confirmed. But then came one of her biggest breaks. In 2023, Taylor Swift announced Sabrina would open for Hair in the Eras tour. That's no small deal. For many artists, opening for Taylor has been life-changing. Sabrina took advantage of it. She gave outstanding performances, charming the audience, and in doing so, gained thousands of new fans. So, what came next? Her new album, Short and Sweet, announced in 2024. Once again, its cover stirred controversy. She appeared kneeling in a dog cage with a pink bow around her neck, like a pet. Immediately, accusations of sexism and submission flooded in. Some even claimed it sent the message that women should be man's best friend. But at the same time, others argued this cover wasn't a mistake, that it was deliberate, an ironic critique of how society sees women, turning those accusations upside down. After all, Sabrina has always played with this duality, being seen as just a pretty girl or someone's girlfriend, but also proving she's a talented, sharp artist. And that's why, today, Sabrina Carpenter is one of the most talked about pop singers of her generation. The question is, do you think Sabrina really uses scandals as a tool to deliver a message and social critique? Or is it all just a publicity strategy to stay relevant? Let me know in the comments.